It was supposed to be just another afternoon. But when the rattlesnake struck, everything changed. In the heat of a summer afternoon, 4-year-old Lily ran through the backyard of her family's home in Arizona. Her laugh echoed in the dry air, the sound of joy in a place that was otherwise quiet. But as she played near the bushes, something dangerous lurked in the grass, something that no one saw coming. A rattlesnake, its scales shimmering in the sun, lay coiled and still. Lily's small fingers brushed against the snake before it struck, biting her leg. The world went quiet, the pain unimaginable for a child so young. She cried out in fear and pain, but there was no one around to hear her, no one to help. But in the distance, there was one listener who heard her cry. Max, the family's loyal pit bull, was resting in the shade of the porch. He had always kept an eye on Lily, always made sure she was safe, even when her parents weren't around. Hearing her cry, Max leapt to his feet. His ears perked, and his tail stiffened. In the blink of an eye, he was sprinting towards her. As Lily continued to scream, Max reached her side, and without a moment's hesitation, he did what any protector would do. He stood between her and the snake, barking furiously, making sure that no harm would come to her. But the snake wasn't deterred. It lunged at Max, biting him instead of Lily. The sharp pain of the venom coursed through Max's body, but he didn't retreat. He stood his ground, facing the venomous creature with unwavering determination. Max's body shook, but his spirit remained strong. Lily, still stunned and terrified, was now safe. Max had taken the blow for her, his body taking the venom so that she wouldn't have to. Her cries slowly turned into frantic pleas for help, but Max couldn't move. His legs were weakening, his vision blurry, but he had done what he had to do. The world seemed to move in slow motion as Lily's father, Tom, came rushing out of the house. He saw Max, the pit bull that had always been by his daughter's side, laying on the ground, struggling to stay conscious. Without wasting a second, he scooped Lily into his arms and rushed to Max's side. The pit bull was still breathing, his body trembling from the pain. Tom called for help, his voice filled with panic, but deep down, he knew the situation was dire. The venom was fast-acting, and there was no telling if they would make it to the vet in time. But there was no time to waste. The love between Max and the family had always been unspoken but deep. He was more than just a dog. He was part of the family, and he had just saved their child's life. They rushed to the car, Tom's hands trembling as he drove faster than he ever had before. He could feel Max's struggle in the back seat, but he refused to believe that this was the end. When they arrived at the clinic, the vet acted quickly. Max was immediately put on fluids, his condition critical but not entirely hopeless. For hours, the family sat in the sterile waiting room, their hearts heavy with the uncertainty of Max's fate. The wait felt endless. But then, finally, after what seemed like forever, the vet came out with a hopeful look on his face. Max had pulled through. The venom was slowly leaving his system, and while he wasn't out of danger yet, he was stable. Max had fought with everything he had, not just for survival, but for Lily. He had given everything to protect the child he had loved since the moment she was born. Tom and Lily could hardly contain their relief. Max was alive, and Lily was safe, thanks to the incredible bond of loyalty between them. The family sat together, their hearts still racing, grateful for the miracle that had just unfolded before them. It was a day that none of them would ever forget, the day a pit bull became a hero, the day that Max saved Lily's life. The sun had begun to set as Tom and Lily sat in the waiting room, the sterile, quiet environment contrasting sharply with the chaos that had just unfolded. Tom's hands gripped the cold metal chair, his eyes fixed on the door, willing the vet to come out and tell him that Max had made it. Lily, her small hand clutching her father's, had stopped crying hours ago, but her eyes still showed the fear she'd felt when Max had taken the snake's bite. She had been so scared. She still was. Every time she thought of it, her stomach tightened, and her chest felt heavy. She kept imagining what could have happened if Max hadn't been there, what might have been her fate if the dog hadn't acted so quickly. Lily looked at the floor, unable to keep the tears at bay. Her thoughts kept drifting back to the moment when Max had been bitten. The pain she had seen in his eyes, the way he had fallen to the ground, not because of the venom, but because of his undying will to protect her. And now, Max was fighting for his life in that back room, hooked up to IVs, surrounded by a team of doctors doing everything they could. Every second seemed to drag on forever. Tom looked down at his daughter, his heart breaking for her. She was so young, yet the fear she had felt was something no child should have to endure. "It's going to be okay, Lily," he said, his voice more comforting to himself than to her. "Max is strong. He's not going anywhere." Lily nodded, but the uncertainty was written all over her face. She wanted to believe him, wanted to hold on to that hope, but the fear of losing Max, the fear of never seeing her best friend again, was overwhelming. Just then, the door to the back room opened, and the vet walked out. Tom and Lily both stood up at the same time, their eyes locking on the doctor as he approached. "He's stable," the vet said, a small smile on his face. "Max is a fighter. He's been through a lot, but we're optimistic. It's going to take some time, but we're hopeful." Tom felt a wave of relief wash over him, the tension in his chest lifting as the weight of the news sank in. "Can we see him?" Tom asked, his voice shaking slightly. "Of course," the vet replied. "Just give us a moment to make sure everything's set up." Tom took Lily's hand and followed the vet down the hallway to the back room. There, lying on a soft bed, Max was still breathing, though his body was weak, his eyes heavy with exhaustion. But his tail, ever the loyal companion, wagged slightly when he saw Tom and Lily. Lily's heart skipped a beat as she rushed to Max's side, her fingers gently stroking his fur. "You're okay," she whispered, her voice thick with emotion. "You're okay, Max. You saved me." Max's eyes softened as he looked at her, his breathing slow and steady. The bond between them was unspoken but deep, a connection built on trust, love, and loyalty. For a moment, time seemed to stand still. The world outside no longer mattered. There was only Max, still here with them. They had made it through this crisis together. Tom bent down and patted Max's head. "You're one tough dog," he said with a soft laugh, the first laugh he'd had in hours. "I don't know what we would have done without you." Max let out a soft grunt, his eyes flickering with recognition. Lily smiled through her tears, knowing that Max had done more than just protect her. He had given her a chance to live, and in doing so, had cemented himself as the hero of their family. The vet returned and nodded. "He's going to need some rest and more treatment, but with time, he'll recover. He's a fighter." Tom nodded, still unable to believe that they had come this far. "Thank you," he said to the vet, his gratitude overwhelming. As they left the clinic later that evening, Tom and Lily felt a sense of peace settle over them. They had faced a terrifying situation, one that had shaken them to their core, but Max was alive. Their bond, stronger than ever, would carry them through the future, no matter what it held. The days that followed were a blur of routine visits to the vet, endless worry, and the quiet, healing presence of Max. The pit bull's progress was slow but steady. Every morning, Tom would wake up early, his first thought always going to Max. He would go to the small room where Max was resting, lying quietly on his soft bed. Max's eyes would meet his with that same look of loyalty, and every time, Tom would feel a wave of gratitude wash over him. He knew they were lucky. Not everyone had a dog that would do what Max had done, and he couldn't help but feel that their bond was now unbreakable. Lily, too, had adjusted to life with Max in recovery. She would sit by his side for hours, her tiny fingers gently stroking his fur, talking to him like he was a hero in the truest sense. Max had saved her, and now she would be there for him, just as he had been there for her. As the weeks passed, Max began to show signs of recovery. His strength was returning, his energy gradually coming back. His tail wagged more often, and his bark, though still weak, was enough to make Lily's face light up with joy. But the scars remained, both physical and emotional. Max had been through so much, but he was a fighter. Every day was a victory. On a bright Saturday afternoon, when the sun was high in the sky and the air was warm, Tom decided it was time to bring Max outside again. It had been weeks since Max had last felt the grass under his paws, and Tom wanted him to have that feeling once more. As they walked into the backyard, Max's ears perked up, his nose twitching as he took in the familiar scents. It was as if he knew this was home, his place of comfort and safety. With each step, his confidence grew, and by the time they reached the middle of the yard, Max was standing tall, his tail wagging furiously. Lily ran up to him, her face shining with excitement. "Max, you're back," she cried, throwing her arms around him. Max nuzzled her gently, his body still weak, but his spirit strong. Tom watched the two of them, a sense of peace settling over him. Max had done more than just save Lily's life. He had become part of the family in a way that went beyond the simple bond between a dog and its owner. He had given them hope when they needed it most, and now they would return that love, giving Max the care and attention he deserved. As the afternoon sun began to set, casting a warm golden glow over the backyard, Tom and Lily sat together, Max resting at their feet. The sound of Max's steady breathing was the only noise, a calming rhythm that marked the end of a long journey. There were still challenges ahead, but with Max by their side, they knew they could face anything. Max had already shown them the true meaning of loyalty, courage, and love. And now, as they sat together, there was no doubt in their hearts. This was just the beginning of a new chapter, one filled with healing, gratitude, and an unbreakable bond. It had been nearly a month since Max had been rescued, and the small family had fallen into a new rhythm. The mornings were still the hardest, with Tom waking up to check on Max, always a little nervous about his progress. But each day, Max seemed a bit stronger, a little more energetic. His once tired eyes now glistened with that familiar spark, the one that always made him a constant companion to Lily, watching her with devoted attention, as if to say, "I've got you, always." Lily, too, was adjusting to a life where Max was back, and the bond between them had only grown stronger since the incident. Every moment they spent together was precious. She would wake up early, rushing downstairs to greet him with a big hug, a routine that had become a sacred part of her day. She knew Max was more than just a dog. He was a protector, a friend, a true hero. One weekend, as the weather warmed, Tom decided it was time for the family to have a day out. He wanted to take Lily and Max to the park, where they could all enjoy the fresh air and sunshine together. Max had been inside for far too long, and it was time for him to feel the grass beneath his paws once more. They drove to the local park, a sprawling green space with tall oak trees and paths that curved around small lakes. As they arrived, Max's excitement was palpable. His tail wagged furiously as he stepped out of the car, his eyes bright and eager. It was clear he had missed being outside, the freedom of open space a welcome change after his weeks of recovery. Lily, filled with joy, ran ahead, calling Max to follow. Tom smiled to himself as he watched the two of them. There was something magical about seeing them together, the way Max always seemed to know where Lily was and how she was feeling. They spent the afternoon at the park, walking along the trails, playing fetch with Max, and just enjoying the simple pleasure of being outdoors. It was a time of healing, not just for Max, but for all of them. After hours of playing, they sat down under a tree, Max lying contentedly beside them. The sun was starting to dip below the horizon, casting a soft golden light across the park. Tom felt a wave of gratitude fill his heart as he looked at the family he had, his daughter and the dog that had saved her life. He realized that despite the struggles they had faced, there was beauty in the journey they had gone through. It was the kind of experience that made you appreciate the little things. Max's recovery had been a long road, but here he was, strong and happy once more, the same loyal dog who had risked his life for Lily. Tom knew there would still be challenges ahead. Recovery wasn't linear, and Max might never be exactly the same. But in that moment, as they sat together in the park, he couldn't help but feel that everything was right. They had all come out the other side of this ordeal stronger than before. The day ended with a quiet drive home, Max content and tired, his head resting on Lily's lap. It was a perfect day, a reminder of how far they had come and how much they had to be thankful for. The days turned into weeks, and life at home with Max slowly settled into a peaceful rhythm. Tom watched as his dog grew stronger each day, his energy returning and his spirit as lively as ever. He no longer needed to help Max up the stairs, and the days of watching him struggle to keep up with Lily were now behind them. Max had proven, time and time again, that he was not just a dog. He was part of the family, and no amount of hardship could break the bond they shared. One morning, as Tom prepared breakfast, Lily came rushing into the kitchen, her eyes wide with excitement. "Dad, Max is chasing me," she exclaimed, her laughter filling the room. Tom turned to see Max, looking healthy and full of energy, sprinting after his daughter in the backyard. Lily, her small legs pumping as she ran, was laughing, calling to Max as he barked happily, his tail wagging wildly. It was a sight Tom thought he might never see again. The pure joy of his daughter and dog playing together, the fear and uncertainty of the past months now replaced by happiness and freedom. Tom couldn't help but smile as he watched them. He had been so focused on Max's recovery, on making sure everything was okay, that he hadn't fully realized how much they both needed this, needed the return of their everyday normal. Max had become a symbol of resilience, not just for Tom and Lily, but for the entire family. He had overcome the odds, and was now living his life to the fullest. That afternoon, after their play session, Tom sat with Lily in the living room, Max resting by their feet. Lily, her head on Tom's lap, looked up at him and asked, "Do you think Max knows how much we love him?" Tom looked down at his daughter, his heart full. "I think Max knows exactly how much we love him," he said, his voice soft. "And I think he loves us just as much." Lily smiled, closing her eyes for a moment as she listened to Max's steady breathing. She had always known that Max was special, but now, after everything, she understood that the bond they shared was unbreakable. It wasn't just a bond of love. It was a bond built on trust, sacrifice, and the unwavering loyalty Max had shown. He had given his all to protect her, and now, she would spend the rest of her life showing him how grateful she was. That evening, as the family gathered around the dinner table, Tom looked around at the faces of those he loved most, Lily, Max, and even his wife, Sarah, who had been with him through the ups and downs of Max's recovery. He thought about how close they had all come to losing everything, but also how much stronger they had become. It wasn't just Max's survival that had been a miracle. It was the way the entire family had come together to heal. He realized that the true strength of their family wasn't just in the triumph of Max's recovery, but in the love and support they had for each other, a love that had only deepened through their trials. And as they sat together, eating their meal and sharing stories of the day, Tom knew that they had something special, something worth protecting, something that would last no matter what. Max had taught them that. No matter what life threw their way, they had each other. And that was all that truly mattered. The months passed, and the warmth of summer gave way to the cooler breezes of fall. The family's routine had become a sense of comfort, and the bond between Max, Tom, and Lily had never been stronger. Max had fully recovered from his ordeal, his strength and vitality returning as though the bite from the rattlesnake had never happened. He was back to his usual self, alert, energetic, and always by Lily's side. Lily had grown even more attached to Max during his recovery, and the two of them shared an inseparable bond. Every morning, Max would greet her with his tail wagging and a joyful bark, and Lily would return the gesture, throwing her arms around him, feeling the warmth of his love and protection. Max had become more than just a dog to her. He was a protector, a companion, and a true friend. One chilly Saturday afternoon, Tom decided to take Lily and Max on a short road trip to the nearby mountains. It had been a while since they had taken a break from their routine, and he thought it would be a good opportunity for them to enjoy the beauty of nature and the fresh air. The drive was peaceful, with the golden hues of autumn leaves lining the roads and the sun casting a soft glow over the landscape. Max sat contentedly in the back seat, his head resting on Lily's lap as she gently stroked his fur. The drive was filled with quiet conversation and laughter, the sound of their voices blending with the soft hum of the car. When they arrived at the mountains, they parked near a small trailhead. The air was crisp, and the scent of pine trees filled the atmosphere as they stepped out of the car. Max, eager as ever, jumped out and immediately began sniffing the air, his tail wagging in excitement. Lily, with her usual enthusiasm, grabbed his leash, and the family began their hike along the trail. The scenery was breathtaking, with towering trees and the sound of a distant creek flowing peacefully in the background. Max trotted ahead of them, his eyes always scanning the surroundings, making sure his family was safe. Lily and Tom walked side by side, enjoying the tranquility of the moment, feeling the weight of their worries lift with each step they took in the fresh mountain air. As they continued their hike, they reached a clearing with a stunning view of the valley below. The sun was beginning to set, casting a soft, warm light over the landscape. Tom and Lily sat down on a large rock, while Max lay down at their feet, resting from the long walk. For a while, they just sat in silence, taking in the beauty of the world around them. Tom looked at his daughter, a sense of pride and gratitude filling his heart. It had been a tough road, but seeing them here, together with Max, reminded him that the love they shared was more powerful than any challenge they had faced. The hike continued, with the family enjoying each other's company, the bond between them deepening with every passing moment. Max was more than just a pet. He was family, and their lives would never be the same without him. As the sun finally dipped below the horizon and the stars began to appear in the night sky, they made their way back to the car, ready to head home. The trip had been a simple one, but it had been everything they needed. A reminder of the strength of their bond, of the love that had brought them together, and of the dog who had saved their daughter's life. Max had shown them what true loyalty meant, and in return, they would spend the rest of their lives cherishing him, just as he had always cherished them. As the months continued to roll by, the family found themselves in a newfound rhythm. Max had fully adapted to his life with them once more, and his bond with Lily seemed to grow deeper each day. He followed her everywhere, from the kitchen to the living room, his loyal eyes always watching, never straying far from her side. It was clear that Max had settled back into his role as protector, as if he never left. Lily was thriving, her confidence growing stronger each day, and Max was at the heart of it all. He had transformed from a pet into a true member of the family, a guardian, and a constant source of comfort. One morning, while Tom was preparing breakfast, he overheard Lily talking to Max in the living room. "You know, Max," she said, her voice soft but filled with love, "I think you saved my life. I think you're my hero." Tom paused for a moment, his heart swelling as he listened to his daughter's words. Max was resting beside her, on the couch, his head in her lap, as he had done many times before. The two of them were inseparable, and the bond between them was undeniable. Tom smiled to himself, feeling a deep sense of gratitude for the dog that had brought so much light into their lives. He walked into the living room and knelt down beside Max, gently petting his fur. "I think you're our hero, too, Max," Tom said, his voice thick with emotion. Max wagged his tail at the sound of his name, his eyes bright and filled with affection. It was a small moment, but it meant everything. As the seasons changed, the family continued to spend quality time together. They made it a point to take Max on long walks, exploring new trails and enjoying the simple pleasure of each other's company. Lily would often run ahead, laughing and calling for Max to catch up, while Tom watched with a sense of pride and contentment. These walks became a cherished routine, a reminder of the strength of their bond and the joy that Max brought into their lives. One weekend, Tom decided to take the family on a trip to the beach. It had been a while since they had spent a day by the ocean, and he knew that Max would love the chance to run freely along the shore. The sun was shining, and the air was filled with the scent of salt water and the sound of waves crashing against the rocks. As soon as they arrived, Max wasted no time in charging toward the water, his tail wagging as he bounded across the sand. Lily ran alongside him, laughing as Max splashed through the waves, his joy evident in every leap and bound. Tom watched them with a smile, his heart full of gratitude for the journey they had been on. It was a journey that had brought them closer together, not just as a family, but as a unit, bound by love and loyalty. Later that day, as the sun began to set and the sky turned a soft shade of pink, the family sat together on a blanket, watching the waves roll in. Max lay between them, his head resting on Lily's lap as she gently stroked his fur. The world felt peaceful in that moment, as if everything was as it should be. Tom looked at his family, the sun casting a warm glow over them, and knew that no matter what challenges lay ahead, they would always have each other. Max had shown them what it truly meant to love, to protect, and to be loyal. He had saved their daughter's life and had become a part of their hearts in ways they could never have imagined. As the day came to an end and the stars began to twinkle above, Tom felt a deep sense of contentment. They had been through so much, but now they were stronger than ever. And Max, the dog who had given everything to protect them, would always be there, by their side, a reminder of the miracle they had been given. As time passed, Max's place in the family only deepened. It had been almost a year since that fateful day when he saved Lily's life, and yet every day with him felt like a gift. Lily, now growing older and more confident, still found comfort in Max's presence. She would often sit with him, reading aloud from her favorite books, her voice soft and calm. As Max rested his head on her lap, listening to the sound of her voice as though he understood every word. Tom watched this with quiet admiration. He knew that Lily had always been strong, but the bond she shared with Max had shaped her in ways words couldn't capture. It was clear that Max was more than just a dog to her. He was a source of unwavering support, a friend who had been there during her darkest moment, and who continued to walk by her side as she grew. One evening, as the family sat around the dinner table, Tom looked over at Max, who was lying beside Lily, his eyes soft and content. He thought about how far they had come and how much they had endured. They had faced a crisis that had shaken them all to their core, and yet here they were, stronger and closer than ever. As they finished their meal, Lily stood up and walked over to Max, gently placing her hand on his head. "You're my hero, Max," she said softly. The words simple but filled with a depth of love and gratitude that only those who had experienced such a bond could truly understand. Max's tail wagged, and he looked up at her. With his deep, trusting eyes, as if to say, "I'll always be here for you." Tom smiled, feeling a warmth in his heart. It wasn't just the big moments that mattered, but the small, everyday moments like this one, moments that reflected the true depth of their relationship. Later that week, Tom took Max for a walk in the park, just the two of them. As they strolled down the familiar path, Max trotted happily beside him, his body strong and full of life. Tom marveled at how resilient Max had been, not just physically, but emotionally. The dog had endured so much, and yet here he was, still loyal, still full of love. The quiet moments they shared, like this walk, were a reminder that their journey wasn't just about overcoming challenges. It was about cherishing the time they had together. As they reached the park's edge, Tom paused, looking out over the peaceful landscape. The sun was beginning to set, casting a warm golden hue across the sky. He knelt down beside Max, his hand resting gently on the dog's back. "We've been through a lot, haven't we, buddy?" Tom whispered, his voice thick with emotion. Max looked up at him, his eyes calm, his body relaxed. It was as though he understood exactly what Tom was saying. "I'm proud of you," Tom added, his voice filled with gratitude. Max let out a soft sigh, his tail wagging slightly as if to say, "I'm proud of us too." They stayed there for a while, watching the sunset, both content in the silence of the moment. Max had given so much to their family, and in return, they had given him a life full of love, care, and happiness. The bond they shared was something beyond words, beyond any measure of time. It was the kind of connection that lasted forever, a promise that no matter what came their way, they would face it together. As the evening turned to night, Tom and Max made their way home. Lily was already inside, her laughter filling the house, as she played with the family's other dog, a young puppy they had adopted a few months ago. Max's eyes sparkled as he trotted inside, knowing that this was his family, the place where he truly belonged. Tom watched Max settle down next to Lily, who wrapped her arms around him once more, whispering, "You're still my hero, Max." And with that, the family, reunited once again, shared the quiet peace that came from knowing they had each other, and that nothing could ever break the bond they had formed. Months had passed since their family trip to the beach, and life had settled into a peaceful routine. Tom, Lily, and Max had come to a place of deep contentment. The hard days of recovery, uncertainty, and fear were long behind them. Max, now completely healed, was once again the playful, energetic dog Lily had always known. His bond with her had grown even stronger, a silent understanding between them that spoke volumes without the need for words. He was her protector, her companion, and in many ways, her best friend. One sunny afternoon, Lily ran outside to the backyard, her laughter echoing through the open windows. Max followed her with a joyful bark, his paws patting the soft grass beneath him as they played together. Tom watched from the kitchen, a cup of coffee in hand, his heart full as he observed the scene. Max had brought so much light into their lives, and the depth of their connection was something he would forever cherish. As the years went on, Max continued to play an important role in the family's life. Tom and Lily took him on walks through the neighborhood, the three of them enjoying the fresh air and each other's company. Sometimes, they would visit the local park, where Max would eagerly run to the open field, chasing after a ball or just enjoying the freedom of wide open space. One fall afternoon, As the leaves turned golden and the crisp air signaled the change in seasons, Tom and Lily decided to take Max on another adventure. This time, they went to a nearby hiking trail, a peaceful spot surrounded by trees with a view of the mountains in the distance. They arrived early in the morning, the sun still low in the sky, casting a soft light over the landscape. Max, always full of energy, bounded up the trail with excitement, his tail wagging furiously as he ran ahead. Lily laughed, calling to him as she followed, Tom not far behind. The hike was beautiful. The trail wound through tall trees, their leaves fluttering in the wind, the air fresh with the scent of pine. Max led the way, always keeping an eye on Lily, his presence a comforting constant. As they reached the top of the hill, the view stretched out before them, mountains in the distance, a river winding through the valley below. They paused for a moment, taking in the beauty of the world around them. Tom stood beside Lily, watching Max, who had trotted a little further ahead, pausing to look back at them as if waiting for their approval. It was moments like these that reminded Tom just how much their lives had changed. He had been through so much with Max, and now, here they were, enjoying a peaceful day together in nature, with the bond between them stronger than ever. After a while, they made their way back down the trail, Max happily trotting beside them. The hike had been a small adventure, but it was one they would all remember. It wasn't the destination that mattered, but the journey, the time spent together, the laughter, the memories they created along the way. As they returned to the car and began the drive home, the sun started to set, painting the sky with shades of orange and pink. Max lay in the back seat, his eyes half closed, content from the day's adventure. Lily sat next to him, her hand resting on his head as she whispered softly, "Thank you, Max, for everything." Max's tail wagged faintly, and for a moment, the world felt still, as if all that mattered was the love they shared and the family they had become. As the car drove through the quiet streets, Tom smiled, grateful for the journey they had been on and the lessons they had learned along the way. Max had taught them what it meant to love unconditionally, to protect, and to never give up. And now, as they returned home, Tom knew that no matter what the future held, they would face it together, as a family, Max, Lily, and him. It had been over 2 years since Max had saved Lily's life, and the bond between them had only grown stronger with time. Max had become a true member of the family, his loyalty unshakable, his love undeniable. Each day was a reminder of the incredible journey they had been on together. Lily had grown into a bright, confident young girl, and Max was always right there with her, his ever-watchful eyes following her every move. Tom had watched the transformation, not just in Lily but in Max as well. The dog who had once been so frail and broken from the bite of the rattlesnake was now healthy, strong, and full of life. Their days together were filled with the kind of happiness that only comes from a deep, unwavering bond. One evening, as the sun began to set, Tom sat on the porch, sipping his coffee and watching as Lily and Max played in the yard. It was a peaceful scene, the kind of moment that made him feel thankful for everything they had. He watched as Lily ran toward Max, her laughter filling the air as she called to him. Max ran after her, his tail wagging, his eyes shining with excitement. The two of them were inseparable, their bond stronger than ever. As Tom sat back in his chair, he thought about the incredible journey they had all been on. They had faced challenges, but through it all, they had stood by each other. Max had been there for them when they needed him the most, and now, they were there for him. They had all healed together, not just physically, but emotionally as well. The love they shared had been the glue that held them together through the toughest times. As the evening turned to night, the family gathered around the dinner table, enjoying a quiet meal together. Max lay at their feet, his head resting on the ground as he relaxed after a day of play. The house was filled with the warmth of family, the simple joy of being together. Tom couldn't help but smile as he looked around the table. He knew that life wasn't always easy, but in that moment, everything felt right. The struggles of the past seemed so far away, and all that mattered was the love they had for each other. After dinner, Tom and Lily took Max for a walk around the block. It had become their tradition, a simple stroll through the neighborhood where they could all unwind and enjoy each other's company. As they walked, Tom thought about how far they had come. He remembered the fear he had felt when Max had been bitten, the uncertainty that had clouded their lives. But now, as they walked together, the bond between them stronger than ever. He felt a deep sense of peace. Max was more than just a dog. He was a symbol of resilience, of loyalty, and of the incredible bond that could form between a human and an animal. The walk was quiet, peaceful, and reflective. They passed the familiar houses, the trees that lined the street, and the parks where they had spent so many afternoons. It was as if the world had slowed down just for them, allowing them to savor the moment. As they made their way back home, Tom felt a sense of gratitude wash over him. He was so thankful for the life they had now, for the family they had become, and for Max, who had been the thread that had held them all together. They had been through so much, but in the end, love had triumphed. They had survived, and they had thrived. And as they walked through the front door, Tom looked down at Max and whispered, "We've got this, buddy. We've got each other." Max looked up at him with those deep, trusting eyes, his tail wagging softly. And in that moment, Tom knew that no matter what life would bring, they would always have each other. The years passed, and with each passing day, the family's bond with Max only grew stronger. Tom, Lily, and Max had become a close-knit unit, united by love, loyalty, and the shared experiences they had gone through together. Max, once just a playful pup, had now matured into the wise, steady companion he had always been destined to be. His fur had begun to show signs of age, with a few patches of gray around his muzzle, but his eyes still held the same spark of joy and devotion. Lily had blossomed into a young woman, filled with confidence and a deep sense of compassion. Max had watched over her every step of the way, from the shy little girl who once needed protection to the confident teen who now stood tall, unafraid of the world around her. She had always been the light of Max's life, and he had returned that love 100-fold. One winter evening, as the family settled down in the living room, the soft glow of the fireplace flickering in the background, Tom couldn't help but reflect on all they had been through. He looked at Lily, who was curled up with Max on the couch, her fingers gently running through his fur. The room was quiet, save for the occasional crackle of the fire. Tom knew that this moment, this simple, peaceful evening, was something to cherish. It was the kind of moment that made everything they had been through worthwhile. Life had a way of throwing curveballs, of testing their limits, but they had made it through it all, together. He had never once doubted their ability to get through the tough times, and Max had been the steady anchor that had held them all together. "You know, Lily," Tom said softly, breaking the silence. "Max has been with us through everything, hasn't he?" Lily looked up at her father, her eyes soft with affection. "Yeah, he's always been there. I can't imagine life without him," she replied, her voice full of warmth. Max lifted his head at the sound of his name, his tail wagging gently as he looked up at Tom and Lily. It was clear he understood, even if he didn't need words to communicate. He had always been there for them, in every way that mattered. The three of them spent the evening together, reflecting on the journey they had taken and the journey still ahead. Time had flown by, and Max was getting older, but there was still so much love to give. The future was uncertain, but one thing was for sure: Max would always be a part of their family. As the night wore on, Tom and Lily eventually stood up to head to bed. Max, as he always did, followed them to the door, his eyes still filled with loyalty and love. He might not have been the young, energetic dog he once was, but he had earned his place in the family's heart. And that place was permanent. In the years to come, Tom and Lily would always carry with them the lessons Max had taught them. He had shown them what it meant to love unconditionally, to be strong in the face of adversity, and to cherish every moment they had together. He had saved Lily's life, but it was the everyday acts of love and devotion that had truly made him irreplaceable. They had been through the fire together, and now they were stronger than ever, a family bound by love and the incredible bond they shared with their beloved dog. The seasons continued to shift, and with each passing year, the family's life with Max seemed to grow more deeply rooted in love and gratitude. Lily, now a young adult, had just finished high school, and Tom found himself reflecting on how far they had all come. Max, though aging, still carried with him that unwavering loyalty, always by Lily's side. There were moments when Tom noticed the subtle signs of time, Max's slower movements, the way he sometimes paused to catch his breath. But even then, the bond they shared had not weakened. It had only grown stronger, a deep, unspoken understanding that no amount of time could diminish. As the family gathered for a quiet dinner one evening, the atmosphere was filled with a sense of calm. Max lay at Lily's feet, resting contentedly, his head on her lap as she absent-mindedly stroked his fur. The warmth from the kitchen filled the room as they ate together, the simple joys of family life that had become so precious to them. After dinner, as the sun began to set and the sky turned soft shades of purple and orange, Lily stood up and walked over to the window. Max followed her with his eyes, his tail giving a slight wag, and Tom couldn't help but smile. They had grown up together, Max and Lily, and now, they were at different stages of life, but the connection between them remained unchanged. "You've always been there for me," Lily said softly, her voice almost a whisper. "Even when I didn't realize how much I needed you." Max raised his head, his eyes meeting hers, and in that moment, it was as if he understood every word. Tom watched from across the room, feeling a wave of emotion wash over him. There was something about the way Max and Lily had come to understand each other that was beyond words. It was a bond forged in love, sacrifice, and moments of quiet companionship. Max had saved her life, but it was the little moments, the way he would nuzzle her when she was upset, the way he would follow her everywhere, always protective, that had truly shaped their relationship. The evening passed in peaceful silence, the family content just to be together. Tom felt a sense of deep satisfaction as he looked at the two of them, his daughter, growing into a remarkable young woman, and Max, who had been a constant, a protector, a friend. It was a quiet kind of happiness, the kind that came from knowing you were exactly where you were meant to be. The next day, Tom took Max on their usual morning walk. The air was crisp, and the streets were quiet as they strolled through the neighborhood, the soft crunch of leaves underfoot the only sound breaking the stillness. Max walked at his side, his movements slower now, but still with purpose. They had been through so much together, and yet here they were, taking a simple walk, the world around them moving forward. Tom thought about how, in a way, they had both grown older, their lives woven together by moments that no one else would understand. Max was not just a dog. He was family. The sun began to rise higher in the sky as they continued their walk, the warmth of the day beginning to creep in. Max stopped for a moment, sniffing the air, his ears perked up as he looked around. Tom stood beside him, watching the dog, and felt a sense of peace settle over him. There was no rush, no pressure, just the two of them together in the quiet of the morning. Max turned to him, his eyes full of trust, and Tom bent down to pat him gently. "You've been with me through everything," Tom whispered, his voice filled with emotion. "And I'll always be here for you, buddy. Always." Max let out a soft sigh, his tail wagging faintly, and in that moment, Tom knew that no matter how much time passed, their bond would remain unbreakable. The walk ended as they made their way back to the house, Max's pace a little slower, but still determined. When they entered the front door, Lily was waiting, a smile on her face as she greeted them. Max walked over to her, his tail wagging as he nuzzled her hand, and Lily leaned down to give him a gentle hug. The love between them was timeless, the kind of love that only grew deeper with each passing day. And as they stood together in the quiet of their home, Tom couldn't help but feel thankful for everything they had, Max, Lily, and the life they had built together. As the years passed, the love between Tom, Lily, and Max remained unwavering. Max, now older and slower, had been a constant source of comfort, joy, and strength for the family. His age was becoming more apparent, but his spirit never wavered. Lily, now in college, would come home during the holidays, and every time she stepped through the door, Max would greet her as if she had never left. The bond they shared had withstood time and distance, proving that some connections were simply unbreakable. Tom often found himself reflecting on how much their lives had changed since that life-altering day when Max had saved Lily. It was hard to believe how much time had passed since that moment, and yet the memories of those difficult days remained as vivid as ever. Every time he looked at Max, he was reminded of the sacrifice and loyalty that had defined their relationship. One crisp autumn afternoon, when the sun was beginning to set and the air had a chill that signaled the arrival of winter, Tom and Lily took Max on a walk through the neighborhood. It had become a cherished tradition over the years, and even though Max was slowing down, he still seemed to enjoy the walks just as much as he always had. As they strolled through the quiet streets, Lily and Tom chatted about their lives, while Max trotted alongside them, his tail wagging gently. The neighborhood was peaceful, with the golden leaves of the trees creating a beautiful carpet on the ground. They made their way to the park where Max had once run freely with Lily. The park was quieter now, the playground empty, but the memories of the past filled the air. As they sat on a bench, Max resting at their feet, Tom watched as Lily gently petted his fur. There was a serene look in her eyes, and Tom could see that, even as she had grown older, her love for Max had never changed. Max, despite his age, still exuded the same warmth and loyalty that had defined his character all those years ago. In that moment, Tom felt an overwhelming sense of gratitude. Their lives had been filled with so much love, so many memories, and so much joy because of Max. He was more than just a dog. He was a symbol of everything that was good and pure in their lives. Max had been a guardian, a protector, and a friend, and as Tom watched him rest peacefully beside them, he knew that no matter how much time passed, Max's legacy would live on in their hearts forever. As the evening wore on and the sun dipped below the horizon, Tom stood up, his hand resting gently on Max's back. "You've given us so much, buddy," Tom whispered, his voice thick with emotion. Max looked up at him, his eyes filled with understanding. The connection between them was as strong as ever, and in that moment, Tom realized just how lucky they had been to have Max in their lives. They walked back home in silence, the bond between them stronger than ever. Tom knew that, while Max's journey with them was coming to an end, his place in their hearts was eternal. He had been there when they needed him the most, and now, as an old dog, he was still there, providing comfort and love in his own quiet way. When they arrived home, they all settled into the living room, Max lying down contentedly by their feet. The house felt warm, filled with the quiet peace that only comes from being surrounded by family. Max, though no longer the young dog he once was, had given them more than they could ever express. His love and loyalty had been a gift, one that would stay with them forever. As the evening drew to a close, Tom and Lily exchanged a glance, both silently acknowledging the incredible journey they had shared with Max. It had been a journey filled with challenges, triumphs, and unbreakable love. And no matter where life took them next, Max would always be a part of their story.